It is pretty crazy, especially when we bring the train station on the road. But I want to welcome everybody who is in the chat. Let me just see if we can get this window open here and see where the chat is. So let me know. I'm going to bring it up on my phone for now, but let me know if the sound is okay now. There's a couple things that I had to do to get us up and running. I'll see us. We're going to be here in just a moment. Hopefully we are streaming by now. Yep, we're there. Okay.
Is it working? Is it working?
It is. So I see, I'm just going to, as I set this up, why don't you sort of set the stage. Today we're going to be talking about some dog agility training. And I'm pretty excited about that. I enjoy, so each week, we try to do train stations every Thursday night at 7:30, but once a month we've got, because I'm working fire, I'm working on a Thursday, so we do bring our train station into the agility arena. And Kayl does an dog agility stream, and it's fun for me to do these streams because I don't know what to expect. I don't know what we're going to get into. I sort of have a general outline of what about, but I'm excited, and I see lots of people are joining us in the chat here. I want to welcome everybody there while I get this set up. So, Kayl, what are we going to do today?
So today we're going to talk a little bit about the idea of having a dog that's balanced or has a certain type of balance between handler focus and obstacle focus. And I don't necessarily mean like your dog's ability to like stay with you on course, that type of focus. I mean, what is their draw? Is there likelihood to be more that they look at you as a handler on course a bit more? So maybe those dogs who tend to be very handler focused, they tend to be really good at like bypassing equipment, avoiding off courses, navigating through tight spaces, those types of things, which people who have very obstacle focused dogs are often very envious of. But those same people often will have struggles with their dogs working at a distance, for example, or doing things a bit more independently because the dog wants to be so close, or running by equipment a little bit more, getting more refusals, those types of things. So there are pros and cons. If a dog is more obstacle focused, typically they will have more trouble with distractions, so obstacle distractions, obstacles that are close together and the dog's having to do discriminations between the two, that type of thing, where they are usually better at working at a distance, doing things more independent of the handler. They don't really need as much. So for both sides, there's both strengths and weaknesses, and our goal as an agility trainer or a handler is to try to figure out what balance between those two ratios works best for you and your dog. So, and everybody's going to be slightly different because some of it has to do with your running ability as a handler, those types of things as well. So for me personally, I like a dog that's a little heavier on the obstacle side and a little lighter on the handler side. So I prefer my dogs to be a bit more prone to wanting to go to the obstacles, and that I'm okay with having to work a little harder to get them to focus on me in certain situations. Some other people might be a little bit different depending on their handling ability. I'm the type of handler that really I like to run with my dogs. I like to move around a lot. So that's sort of my style. So, you have to figure out what works best for you and your dog. And the good news is that although some dogs are naturally one way or the other, a lot of the reasons behind why a dog is more handler focused or obstacle focused is due to the training, or they're rewarding, right, or how you're practicing things. And that's sort of what we're going to get into today. How reward placements are going to change things. Is it working now?
Yeah, we're good.
And how you're practicing and how you're training will help either side of the story. So that's sort of the gist of it.
So today we're going to be talking about handler versus obstacle focus, and we're going to sort of help you figure out what's the best balance for you. I'm Ken Steep.
I'm Kayl McCann.
Welcome back to McCann Dogs. So I see lots of people have joined us in the chat. I do appreciate that assistance with the audio. You're right, I started without any audio.
Hopefully we didn't say anything too important.
This is, I went back over it, luckily.
Okay.
But it's a different setup. It's a totally different setup than in the studio, so especially trying to get it going on the fly, it's a bit of a challenge. But I want to say hello to Dan, Katie, Mr. Blue, Heather, who else have we got? Jessica,
Katie, Jessica,
Kathy, Shandy, Taylor, Lilia, Madison.
Holy schmoly.
Want to welcome all you guys that I see in the chat. And if you are watching this on Facebook, make sure you click the YouTube link, and then you can come over to YouTube where you can actually be part of the chat. I see lots of people are watching though right now, which is really cool. Something I'd love to know, and because this stream is a little bit later, I know often our train stations, we get lots of people from like the UK and over in that part of the world. I'd love to know where you guys are watching from tonight. And
that's a good point.
I'd also really like to know, do you feel like if you're an agility handler, do you feel like you have an obstacle focused dog or a handler focused dog? And Kayl's going to talk about some ways
That actually
that
would be
you
really
can create
helpful,
some
because then I
balance.
can maybe shift my teaching today towards one or the other if there tends to be something that's more obvious.
Definitely. Something that I always notice in classes is some people feel, or they'll say, this dog is just too fast. I'm not fast enough for this dog. And something that we'll occasionally talk about is getting a little bit more obstacle commitment from that dog so that that handler can get ahead a little bit. And talk about the importance of that.
Yeah, I think that, some people get a little bit overwhelmed by dog speed. And, when a dog is fast, it's great because, fast dogs and agility are awesome. But they also have to be really well trained, and the more well trained that your dog is, and the more they understand how to do not only obstacles independently of you, but also cues. So collection cues, turning cues, slow down cues, those types of things are all really important. That directionals, all really important if you are the type of handler that can't keep up with your dog very much, and they tend to really, escape you because of their speed. So taking the time to train those things will really help make you feel less panicked when you're running around the course, because you have a little bit more training on your side. Sometimes it's nice when you have handlers that can really run with their dogs because their dogs aren't either as fast, or maybe you have just a really, really fast handler. That's great, and there's lots of pros to that, but sometimes those dogs get so used to running with their handler that they don't end up learning to do things as independent. And maybe that's not ever going to be an issue, but I've had handlers who have gotten hurt, for example, and they can't run as well, or whatever. Somebody else has to handle their dog. And so I'm a big believer in training your dog to do as much as you possibly can, even outside of what you need for your skill set, because it just broadens your tool. It gives you a bigger toolbox. And that way, when you get into a situation, I want to be able to say, well, this doesn't happen very often, but I've trained this before. I don't feel overwhelmed by it. So, I'm prepared for this, opposed to just sticking yourself in a box and only having a couple things that you use.
Yeah, I see some people joining us in the chat. I want to welcome anybody who's new. I've seen a few people say in the chat, I finally made it to a live. So I want to welcome you guys to our live stream now. If we were in our studio, you would hear me blow the whistle, the train station whistle. Tonight's not that kind of night. And I'd love to know, we need a name for this. We need some sort of agility training name. And I don't really, I'm thinking maybe late night agility hang or something, or late night, I don't know. We got to come up with something, and it's always going to be later in the night. So, you can incorporate that. I've seen some great suggestions come through the chat for these kinds of questions before. But I wanted to welcome everybody that's new. I also we asked a question earlier, do you feel like you have a more obstacle-focused dog?
I want to touch base on something really quick.
Or a more handler-focused dog, and yeah, we'll answer that in a second.
So one of the things I'm sort of seeing in the chat, so what we're going to be talking about tonight is not whether your dog is focused on you in the fact that they might get distracted by people in the ring, or they're leaving you to, that's an entirely different topic, which I would be more than happy to speak about. We help students with that all of the time. I'm talking about whether a dog is more prone to want to be sticky and Velcro to you. That would be handler focus, or more prone to, taking off courses, or they get stuck on a line of jumps and you can't pull them off of it really quickly. This has nothing to do with obedience training tonight. This has everything to do with detailed dog training. But I find sometimes using the phrasing handler focus and obstacle focus, it can be a bit confusing. So if you are having trouble with your dog just being focused on keeping on task. If we have time, I might be able to get to some of that tonight, but that could maybe be a conversation for another night, because there's lots I could say about that.
Mm-hmm. So already we've had a good suggestion, and it's from Shandy Blake, who's often joins us in the train station, After Hours Agility.
Oh, I like that.
It's a pretty catchy title. I like it, Shandy.
Shandy's pretty creative.
She is, for sure. Now, I also noticed Marty McCann has joined us in the live stream. We want to welcome you,
From
Marty.
Florida?
From Florida. Dan and Ellen Luton say moo moo, so they know maybe what's coming up. I'm not sure what sort of things Kayl has
I don't know
planned.
if I'm doing any moo-moos tonight.
Yeah, there might not be any mooing.
No.
But I've seen some people mention in the chat, they've said things like obstacle. Yeah, so Diane mentions super time to watch here from Connecticut. I have an obstacle focus
Yeah,
dog.
it would be a good time.
Yes, yeah.
Perfect.
What else are people saying?
I have one of each.
Heather mentions my dog is really handler focused. Yeah, for sure. And that's a pretty common problem, I would say.
Cool.
Madison mentions one is more handler committed, which makes her difficult to get her to go faster, although she's great with running clean. The other's toy focused.
Cool.
15 months still in training.
Yeah, I don't know if I said this before or not. I think it maybe went off on a tangent, but you can train your dog to be more handler focused or more obstacle focused depending on what you have currently. I think I did start to say this, and I think I maybe got sidetracked. So dogs sometimes come naturally one way or the other, but you can change the training. And I can give you an example. I have a toy poodle, for example, and I taught her to do agility, and it's sort of a well-known thing that small dogs typically tend to be prone to be more handler focused than obstacle focused. And I wanted to break that mold and have a small dog that could go and do things at a distance really easily. So I really trained a lot of obstacle focus and distance work and independence with her. And then I went a little so crazy on it that when I went to do anything like where she had to run by equipment or go between equipment or things like that, it was not happening for me.
Yeah.
So I had to figure out how to balance that ratio so that I could do both things, and one wasn't significantly harder for me than the other.
And I posted Katie C's comment on here. She's tuning in from Long Island. I've got a puppy,
nice.
so I don't know yet, but I'm trying to build both right now.
Yeah.
And I think that's sort of what you were alluding to.
Yeah, and when you know a little bit more about this topic, when you raise a dog from foundation training, you will be aware of whether your dog is becoming more heavy about obstacle focus or heavy about handler focus, and then you can adapt your training. So the dog I'm going to bring out in a minute or so, she's my 2-year-old border collie, and I would say that she's always been a little heavier on the obstacle focus training because of how I trained her initially, but it's never really been a big issue because I've trained lots of dogs and what to look for. So it's been a nice balance all the way through. When I see that she's really like focused or wanting to go to the equipment because we've just learned something new, for example. Yeah. She tends to want to just repeat whatever she's been rewarded for. I then need to switch gears and, work on making sure she's not just assuming and that she's listening. And I try to break things down and help her be successful. So we'll talk a little bit about some dog training stuff today too.
Yeah. So how do you want to start this training session?
Well, maybe we can work a little bit on some bypass stuff.
Okay.
Where they have to go from taking the equipment to not taking the equipment.
So who's this for? Like, are we going to start?
This is for both.
For both? Okay.
The drills that I'm going to show you today are drills that work both sides of the story. So sometimes I'm going to make my dog think that it's, one thing, one particular obstacle, and then I am going to switch it up on her and make her be listening and not just assume that she's going to repeat what she's rewarded for. Now, I'm working with a dog that's heavy on the obstacle focus side. She loves to take the equipment. So for her, when I'm training, I would do more reps of having her come to me than I would sending her to take the equipment. Now, if I was working with a dog that was more handler focused, I would practice many more reps of her going away than I would having her come to, since that's the easy part. So that's the first thing you need to know about balancing it out, is know what kind of dog you're starting with and then train according to that dog. Now, I've done a lot of this with my dog, so I'm at the point where I make it really hard on her. Knowing that she's a very obstacle focused dog, I'm actually going to start my training today by letting her take the obstacles, take the obstacles, take the obstacles, take the obstacles. Now I'm going to get it really ingrained in her head, and then I'm going to ask her not to, because I really want her to think about listening. And I have worked this a lot, so I anticipate it's going to go well, but that's One never knows. One never knows. Okay, I'm gonna get her out.
Okay, we'll get Beeline out, and I'll just say hello to Chucky Rendon has joined us. Karen Horan says 60% obstacle focus, 40% handler focus. Yeah, that's not a bad mix. Trisha Waple says, my current dog is balanced between handler and obstacle. We're working on verbal cues. I'm a slow handler, so need to have the dog able to work independently to some extent. Yeah, I can totally appreciate that. Jessica mentions, my dog is a Chihuahua Doberman Boxer Border Collie. Wow, that's quite a mix. Patricia mentions I have both. Yeah. Crenton 100, way too handler focused. Almost a year-old Sheltie who can't go jump to jump without looking or jumping on me. And Lilia, welcome to the live stream, Lilia. She's from Atlanta, Georgia. He was handler focused, now is balancing out a bit though, and he loves the tunnel a bit too much, which is a pretty common thing.
I actually have,
You'll have to step on camera for them to hear them, I think.
I actually have a couple of mini drills that I might even. Oh, I'll show you the big stuff first, and then we'll get into the little training stuff.
Okay.
To begin with, you're gonna have to.
It's time. Oh my goodness! I have
a dog on your
visitor.
lap.
Okay, I'm gonna turn into the cameraman here. Okay, B.
Okay, B, come on.
Off you go, buddy.
Ready?
And we are gonna get to training.
Okay. So what's going to happen here is I'm going to send her up over this blue jump here. Ken's hopefully going to show you where it is.
Stand by one sec. I'm just going to move this a little bit.
So I need to go here, here, and then there. Do you see where we're going?
There.
Yep. So I'm going to do the blue jump, and then I'm going to send her in this tunnel. And then I'm going to do that a couple times, so that's really what she's thinking. Then I'm going to have her take the blue jump, and then I'm going to ask her to bypass the tunnel. So for her, she is only allowed to take tunnels when she hears the command. I don't ever let her go through a tunnel without some type of command. And because I have a dog that's more prone to being very obstacle focused, I don't just let her take equipment whenever she wants to. I try to make sure I give her a cue for it, and that also helps me to be able to control it. I also have another command that means that she's got to bypass the equipment. So if I slap my leg on the side that's closest to her and I tell her here, 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 her job is to come in and run very close to my side and run past the equipment. Now, I've trained both of these things very independently, like foundation training first, and I will go over that with you in a moment. But that's sort of what I'm getting at here. And again, keep in mind, this dog is very obstacle focused. So I'm gonna train her based on that. Now, because she's very, come here, babe. Because she's very obstacle focused, I'm gonna play around with how I'm gonna reward her. So when I send her over this blue jump, and I'm gonna send her into the tunnel first, I'm gonna make this hard on her, and I'm gonna really build her up for the obstacles. When I'm working on getting her to be obstacle focused, I'm not gonna reward her from my hand. I am going to throw the reward and give her permission to get away from me, to run fast. If I want her to come to my side, or if I want her to be more handler focused, I'm gonna keep the toy in my hand for that, or I might even switch to food, depending on what I'm gonna do. All right, you ready? Wait. Okay, up, tick, 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 tunnel, 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 tunnel. Yay, good girl. Whoa, slipperoo, come here. Yes, good girl. Yay. So, this is not very difficult drill, just jumping and then a tunnel. But the whole reason I'm doing this is because I'm gonna transfer her to have her not take the tunnel in a second. So I'm just really getting her thinking about the equipment. You see how early I'm giving my cues, and I'm throwing the toy from there. Tap, tap, tap. Yes, get it. Okay, there's another little example of dog training. My dog already wants to go to the jump, you can see from her behavior. If I was just to let her go, I'm allowing her just to lock onto that equipment. So if she tries to go towards equipment before I've given her a cue, I might ask her to do something like tap my hand with her nose, or have her come back, because I want her thinking about doing this only when she's given the command. Okay, ready? On your mark. Set. Okay, hop. Tick, tick, tick. Tunnel, 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 tunnel. Yay, good girl, beep. Shh. Good girl. All right, I'm gonna do one more. This is hard, little bee. Okay, out. Sit, sit. Yes, okay, hop, tick, 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 tick. Tunnel, tunnel, tunnel. Yay! All right, this is gonna be tough. So now, where are ya? Where are ya? I'm gonna tell her to take the jump, but then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tell her here, 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 and I'm gonna give her that side cue. I'm gonna slap my leg, and she should run past the tunnel instead of taking it. I have a sneaky suspicion she's gonna take the tunnel, but if that happens, that'll be good, because then I can show you what to do. Okay, come here. Sit. B. Sit. Sit. Yes, good girl. Now, again, If I ask her to sit, she needs to sit. She knows how to sit, but she's very high-minded right now. You can see she looks really buzzed because she's really excited. So I need to make sure that, again, I'm keeping her thinking about what she's doing. If I ask her to sit, she needs to. Yes, you do. Okay, ready? Sit, sit. Good. Okay, tick, 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 tick. Here. Whoa. So I'm not going to reward her. Come here. Let me try it one more time. B. Sit. So I'm going to give her one more chance, and if she doesn't get it right, I'm going to change things and help her be successful. I don't let my dog be wrong over and over and over again. If she does it incorrect twice, that tells me she doesn't really understand what I'm asking her to do. So I'm going to make it easier. Wait. Hop, tick, 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 tick. Here. Yay! Good girl. Yes. Good. Very nice. Okay, try it again. Here. B. Sit. Sit. Yes. Good. Okay. Tick, 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 tick. Here. Yes. Good girl. Very nice. Good girl. All right, now I'm going to go back to take the tunnel. Here. Sit. Sit. Yes. Okay. Tick, 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 tick. Tunnel. Yes. Good girl. Come on. Shoo. Good girl. Okay, out. Set, tap. Yes, tap. Ready, tap. 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 Yes. Hop, tick, 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 tick. Here. Yes. Good girl. She's got it. Okay. Let's just assume that she didn't know this as well as she does. So if I needed to make this a little bit easier, the very first thing that I would do to help raise handler focus is I would make the exercise easier. Now, if you're gonna go try this with your dog at home, you need to make sure that you have done the foundation of teaching your dog to come to your side the way that I've done, and I'll show you that in a moment. But if you have done a bit of this and you're practicing something like this and the dog's struggling, then what I would do is take the jump out of the equation, and I would just simply practice getting her to bypass the tunnel without any motion, just to make it a bit easier. Okay, out. Here. Sit. Sit. Wait. Good girl. Wait. Yes, wait. So I'm going to lead out a little bit. Sit. Wait. Good girl. I'm going to connect back with her. Here. Yes. Good girl. Good. Yes. So I would just start off by making it a little bit easier from there. Now, if you've never done anything like this handler focus work before, so again, right now I'm giving you advice for those of you who have dogs that are very, very obstacle focused and you need to raise handler focus. I'll talk about the other ratio after this, but I do lots of things like teaching her to come and tap my hand near the equipment. I teach lots of wrapping around. And a lot of this training, I start with the dogs as little puppies. So if I'm gonna teach this cue, sit, I would simply just start off by having her sit and wait, no equipment around, and I would simply say here, and I like to just turn in a circle. And if she wraps my body tight, I will yes and reward her and tug with her. Again, I'm not gonna throw the toy, I'm gonna keep it in my hand. Ready? Here. Yes, good girl. And I would practice that. The dogs pick up really quickly because we tap our side to get our dogs to come to us on a regular basis. It's very natural. Now, when I want to start proofing this, I don't just go to equipment right away. I start to proof it. So I might do things like put her toy on the floor and see if she'll do a here without going to her toy. Here. Yes, get it. Yay, good girl. And so I can start to proof little things like getting her to respond even though the toy's on the ground. Good, okay, here. Sit, wait, good. So toy, ready. Okay, here. Yes, get it, good girl. Yee! Excellent-y. And if she can do that, I might practice doing it in front of a tunnel. Out. Here, sit, wait, good. Okay, here. Yes, good girl. Yay! Play little games like that to get her thinking about moving towards me and having a lot of rewards from there. That's a very good girl. And then for a jump, I can show you what I do. Here, sit.
Can you use that jump? You're too close for this one.
Yeah, for sure. Here. Here. Come here. Sit. Good. I might stand in front of the jump. Okay, tap. Yes, tap. Yes, tap. Yes, good girl. I'll have her move towards me and then ask her to tap. Out. Sit. Wait. Good girl. Okay, tap. Whoops. Tap. Yes, tap. Yes, tap. Yes, get it. Good. Notice I throw the toy away from the obstacle since she wants to go to the obstacle. Good girl. Here. Yes, and then of course I would start to complement this by sometimes putting her over the jump. Wait. She almost needs a drink break. Okay, tap. Yes, tap. Yes, tap. Yay! Good girl, B. Yay! And I'm going to show you one more version. Good. Out. Sit. Where she's got to bypass the jump. Okay, tap. Tap. Yes, yes, yes. Yay! Good girl. Where she's got to run around the jump and find my hand. So lots of little games where she's not taking the obstacle. I think I need to give her a break. She's panting a bit now.
I just need it. We have a flat tire. We're getting a flat tire here on the tripod, so just give me a second.
Yes, okay, get your...
Hopefully you guys don't feel like you're sinking. That lends itself well to the old joke, what are you sinking about? So, I really wonder how many of you guys right away could identify how great a training opportunity that would be for you, for your... Hi, buddy, I think you need to go get a drink. What a great training opportunity that would be for you and your dogs. I'm just going to jump in the chat here, and I don't know if there's anything else that you wanted to add to that, Kayl.
Well, again, this is something that we're focusing on for those dogs that are really obstacle focused. So when you're doing some of the training that I'm showing you, first thing that you want to do is work on a lot of these foundation exercises to build the dog's ability to respond to the cues that mean to come close to you or to pay attention to you, whether it's hand taps or coming to your side or whatever it might be. But then you want to proof that by starting to integrate and sending them to an obstacle and then having them commit to you, sending them to an obstacle. Of course, the ultimate goal is to add all kinds of motion, because when you have a dog that's very prone to being attracted to the obstacles, when you start to add motion, which means you add running and excitement and stimulation, the dogs are more likely to switch back on to being really obstacle focused. So when you're training, you want to build in all of these things so it's a nice complement of training. What you don't want to do is, practice a few things in front of a jump and then run a full course and expect your dog to be a rock star. You have to make sure that you're being thoughtful and have a nice smooth progression with your training. Yeah,
for sure. I think Shandy Blake said, this is a great drill for Heidi. She's a total tunnel sucker.
Oh, I'm going to show you another tunnel sucker cue in a minute.
Okay. Do you have, what else can you offer for those people who are really trying to work on their balance? Or maybe some people need to discover whether they need a more obstacle-focused dog. Like when would you decide whether you want your dog to be more obstacle-focused or more handler-focused? When is it beneficial as a handler?
Well, I think it depends on the level of agility that you're doing. Like I said before, it depends on you as a handler and like how fast of a runner are you compared to your dog? Does your dog outrun you really easily? Those dogs need to be more obstacle focused and they need to be able to do things more independently, depending on what class you do. So for example, snooker, if any of you know what snooker is, that particular class, really the dog has to transfer from taking equipment to going through equipment, taking equipment to going by equipment. So you need to have a dog that's very very balanced. A lot of people will say that snooker, they hate snooker because my dog just takes course, jumps and does whatever they want.
It can be devastating.
Yeah, but that's maybe you need to work more on some of the cues I've just showed you, because you should be able to feel confident that when you ask your dog to come close or bypass something that they're going to do it because you've worked on training them to do it. A lot of this stuff takes a lot of time and practice. But I mean, this is a great little drill. It only takes a couple obstacles. It doesn't take a lot of space. She's already gassed and it was, it's a lot of fun.
A couple quick questions. KDC asks, do you build the behaviors of going over or through the equipment before you start testing, if they can be sent or be pulled off of them? So Beeline would have a thorough understanding of the obstacles before you're starting to test that.
I train both at the same time. So a lot of the skills that I'm showing, like the hand tap and the leg slap, I taught that to her when she was a baby puppy with no equipment around, just so that she really understood the cue. And then, of course, I was teaching her the obstacles, when she was age appropriate. And then once we got to the point where she could put both items together, both situations together, then I did that. But I will tell you, B, come here, babe. I thought I was going to be like really smart by every dog I've ever owned has always really loved tunnels. And I thought to myself, it must be something that I do. It must be something that I train that makes my dogs just so crazy about the tunnels. And tunnels are constantly used as distractions, and they can be really scary if they're put in a situation where you don't want the dog to take them, but they're right there. So I thought, okay, I'm going to be really smart, and I'm not going to teach B a tunnel until she's like 8 months, 10 months old, and maybe that will like change her love for the tunnels. It won't be that big of a deal. So I did that. It absolutely doesn't work. She still was crazy about the tunnels. So I think it's just good to do both at the same time, and take the time to train some of these skills independently, so that you have a solid understanding and the dog does before you're doing it in any sequences or coursework.
Lilia's got a good question. With the tunnel aroused dogs, how do you figure out a high enough reward for them? And I think we'll talk a little bit about the reward isn't as important as making sure that they don't rehearse that bad behavior. If you've got so I think we've solved the issue. See if we're on the same. Okay, I think we're good. We had a bit of a technical issue. I'm not sure whether it was the internet, but let me know if we are back and live, and let us know if we are.
So Melinda Miller asked a question, do I think that the dog is responding more to the sound of the leg slap or the motion? She doesn't always get like a good sound when she's running. That's a really good question, and it's definitely the motion. I know a lot of people that don't like to slap the side, and they simply just drop their hand down to their side and don't do any slapping action. They just sort of drop their hand down towards the dog, and that also works perfectly fine. I think that it takes a little bit more training because it's not quite as noticeable. But we work hard to teach the dog to respond to both the verbal and the physical. If I was to do this exercise and I was to not say here, and just slap my side, I think she would probably give me a similar response. If I was to do this exercise, not slap my side and only say here, I think I would have to work a lot harder because the dogs just respond to the physical cues just so much better than the verbal. But I don't think that the loudness of your leg slap is imperative.
Okay, let's move on. I see we were having some technical issues. I think I know we're back now, so let's jump right into the next exercise. And see
so I think the next thing that I'll do is talk a little bit about obstacle focus. So if you have a dog that tends to be a bit of a Velcro dog, they like sort of being close to you. I would recommend doing a lot of shaping with your dog on the core on the jump. So if you don't know what shaping is, it's when the dog offers the behavior and then you reward them. I did a lot of offering the jump when she was younger, where she learned just to go and take it for a reward despite my body language or my position, to really build that value. The other thing that I teach every single one of my agility dogs to do is a mark command. And a mark command means that when I ask them to mark, they are to not look at me and pay attention to the obstacle that's in front of them. And it's such an easy exercise to teach, but that focus forward really lends a great foundation exercise for start lines, for contact training, for weave training, for go on training where the dog has to find a line and run ahead of you. So that is absolutely a staple in my training. So maybe I can show you a little bit of how I teach that.
For sure, sounds good.
Okay, B, I'll just do it on the flat before I do it.
I want to thank you guys for waiting patiently as if we were getting buffering. I'm running an older laptop, so I don't know, maybe that's part of the problem. And now I'm actually linked to my phone. I'm using my phone's internet. So I'm going to make sure we get some training in here. I know that Crenton 100 said I so needed the over-handler focused discussion. So hopefully this is going to help you out, Crenton 100, and I will bring this stuff out of the way. And we will jump in. Well, I forget, what did Shandy call it? The late night agility, or no, the agility, after hours agility.
After hours agility.
So this is for Shandy, the after hours agility.
Okay, so you don't have to do this from a sit and wait. I'm just gonna show you from a sit and wait. You can even just hold your dog. I actually did this with her when she's a baby puppy before she even knew a weight. I just held her. So basically what you're gonna do is have your dog hold position or have somebody else hold your dog, and you're gonna put a reward that they really love out in front of them just a few feet. And when you first start this exercise, you're not gonna give any commands. All I'm gonna do is wait for her to offer to look at the toy or at the reward, and you can use food if you wanted to as well, rather than me. And when she does, I'm gonna say yes to pinpoint that she's correct, and then I'm gonna tell her, get it. So she's allowed to go from the toy. So I'm gonna put this out.
You can hear a pin drop in here.
Okay, so she's being really funny right now. Is she looking now?
She's just like that.
Okay, I'm gonna actually explain what she's doing. So, because her behavior is so deliberate, I can see what she's doing. She's actually avoiding the toy to give me eye contact because it's another exercise that I'm doing. So I'm just gonna break it up, and I'm just gonna help her to understand what I'm asking of her. She's trying to be right now, so instead of like waiting her out and like making her be stressing about whatever, she literally thinks that she's doing what I want her to do. So I need to help her out a little bit. So I'm just gonna go and help her. Where's that toy? Where's the toy? Oh, yes, where's the toy? Get it! Yay! Good girly! So I'm just gonna go and put my hand beside her face. I'm just gonna help her out a little bit here. I want her to be right. Out. Sit. Ready, set. Get it! Yeah! Good girl! So I'm waiting for her to look at the toy, and then I'm releasing her from there. Ready, line up. Ready, set. Good! That's better! Get it! Yeah! Good girl. So I'm waiting for her little eyeballs to look at the toy, and then I'm releasing from there. Good girl. With some dogs, when you try this, guys, if you leave them in a sit and wait and you lead off, if you've done a little bit of obedience training, sometimes the dogs want to look at you because they're trained to do that. I'm a big believer that dogs can cross sport, so she can be a great obedient dog and she can work without ever taking her eyes off me, and she also can learn to focus ahead when she's doing agility. She absolutely knows to do both. My job is to help her sort through things so that she can do both. I'm going to show you in a second how I'm going to do that. Wait. Ready? Set. Yes, get it. Good girl. So now she's really understanding, so I'm going to go back to what I was doing before. Ready? Sit. Wait. We haven't practiced this in a bit. Yes, get it. Good girl. So as I see her move forward or look forward, I'm going to release her. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to help her to realize, sit, that if I want her to look at me, she should look at me. If I want her to look forward, she should look forward. Now I haven't done this with her in probably a year, so she could be terrible at it, which is okay. Wait. Mark. Look at me. Yes. Look at me. Yes. Mark. Good. Mark. Good. Look at me. Yes. Mark. Mark. Yes. Get it. Good girl. So I want her to understand. Look forward. Look at me. Look forward. Look at me. Good girl. Now, once you played around with this a little bit, the next thing you can do is start to transfer it to an obstacle. So if I'm going to send B over this jump, and I'm trying to work on obstacle focus, sit. Once she understands to look forward at the jump, or sorry, at the toy, I'm going to put her behind the jump. Can you see me, sweet? I'm going to put the toy on the other side, and when I lead out, see how she's already looking forward at the toy, which eventually will mean she'll look forward at the jump. So I'm going to tell her, Mark, Mark, Mark. Good. Mark. Okay, get it. Yes, good girl. And then I can send her forward from there. Very nice. So initially when I'm practicing this, she's looking forward because the toy's out there, but I'm just training this, and then out. I'm training this and eventually I can lean off of the toy. Sit. When I'm practicing this, wait, good girl, I'm going to change my position, so I might go behind her this time. Mark, good girl, Mark. Yes. Oops, Mark. Mark. Yes, get it, good girl. That was a hard one. Good girly. Yee. Out, but then what we can start to do is we can play little games. I'm just sort of fast tracking through some of the steps here just so that you're not confused I wouldn't go from what I just did to what I'm about to do now, but I just want to show you the context. So once I've been playing with this kind of jump games where she's learning to look at the jump, and she's able to look at the jump when I ask her to, which takes several sessions, by the way, not as fast as what I'm just doing it now. I can play little games with her. We call this the pointing game. So I'm going to leave her, I'm going to come up, I'm going to indicate the jump, and then I'm actually going to move over here. I'm going to focus on the jump. She might not do this. And I'm going to have her mark. Yes, good. When she looks again, this is hard because I'm talking to her and I'm talking to you. But when she looks again, I'm going to tell her okay, and I'm going to have her take the jump, and then she can come to me for a reward. So even though I'm over here, I can progress to there. And I would never start this far away if I'm first beginning this. I would start right smack dab beside the jump. But I'm showing you how this is where you can get to. Ready? Mark. Mark. Yes. Okay. Yes, good girl. And then I can reward her from there. So I can start to get her thinking about going to take the obstacles, you know, by focusing forward on them. But it's a really easy exercise to do just on the flat with no equipment. Even when you give your dog their breakfast or their dinner, just have them look at the bowl for a few moments before you release them forward, and then eventually put it on a command, and then you can progress from there. But every single one of my agility dogs learns that exercise, and I find that it bleeds into so many other parts of what I train in agility to build that obstacle focus. And the other thing, the most common reason why when I see that dogs are way too obstacle focused is because of the person's rewarding. So there's too much rewarding from hand, too much calling the dog back to tug, and also too poor timing of, if you are throwing the toy, of when to throw the toy. So actually I can show this because this is a good example. Okay, so if I'm going to reward her for going to take the jump, this would be the correct timing. Okay, so if I wanted to send her over, I say, okay, go hop, good girl. So she's landing and she's getting the toy as she's going, so she never really looked back. But this is what a lot of people do. They say, go hop, yes, good, and then they throw the dog the toy. So what I've just allowed her to do is curl back to get the toy. And if I do that 30 or 40 times, I'm conditioning my dog to come back to me. He said, go hop, yes, good girl. Oops, that was a bad example, B. I gotta be a better thrower. Let's try that again. Wait, tap, 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 tap. Yes, good girl. And then I can throw my toy from there. So toy placement, I actually think somebody commented on my toy placement in the last live stream that I did. But toy placement is really important. When you throw, how you throw. If you're not a good thrower, get a friend that is so that they can drop the toy for you, or it can be food. With my poodle, she really loved food, so I used a little manners minder, like a little treat and train with her quite a bit, and I could sort of position it out in different areas and get her to run to it so that the reward wasn't coming right from me. But again, you really need to think about, like, what is your dog heavier in? Because the information that I'm giving you now would not be good for dogs that are already crazy obstacle focus. This is good for dogs that need a little bit more, no, sorry, I meant to say the other way around. What I'm showing you right now is increasing obstacle focus. So if your dog is already crazy about the obstacles, you're gonna wanna do some of the stuff I showed at the beginning of the stream. But when you get to a point where a dog is balanced, so B is probably like 70-30, I would say. She's probably a bit better about coming to me as a handler. So I'm at the point now where I can flip-flop between the two stuff, you know, all of the time. But if I find I'm practicing, I've been practicing a lot of like bypass stuff, a lot of tunnel discriminations. I've been doing that a lot lately. So her ability to come off obstacles is really good right now, but it could mean that maybe she doesn't go away from me, you know, quite as easily. So you're always keeping a tab on what your dog needs, and then you're adapting your training session. Just because you train one thing doesn't mean that you're done forever. It's a constant, a constant work. Anyways, yeah. So hopefully those things were kind of helpful.
Yeah. Okay. We'll bring our chairs back in. I'll move the lights back.
I'll just come over like
and
this.
We'll see what sort of questions. Oh yeah, this is an interesting.
It looked like we have no legs.
Yeah. Let's bring it up here. This is actually quite uncomfortable, and it's not that helpful for sitting, sitting on camera. Okay, I'm gonna grab 2 chairs.
Ken doesn't like this. Not really.
It's just I've got to operate the live stream machine, so I'm gonna have to bring this thing back. Okay, let's bring it back up.
Let's answer some questions.
Yes.
I'm gonna put my dog on a leash.
Okay, so Yeah, so Shandy had mentioned that it was hard for B when she was sitting there waiting for the cue. It does make it a little bit more challenging when she's sort of trying to be right. Let's see here. What have we got? So Emily Wetherill asks, how do you get a dog to be toy motivated, or is it a natural thing?
It's not always a natural thing. Go and lay down. Good girl. Wait, go and lay down. Yes. It's not always a natural thing. Some dogs certainly are more naturally driven to like toys, while other dogs aren't. But I've also seen dogs that are very naturally toy driven, and that toy drive quickly gets diminished by how the handler interacts with the dog with toys. There's lots of ways to accidentally diminish a dog's toy drive. A couple quick examples would be, do you have toys like this accessible to your dogs all of the times? Like, our dogs do not have access to any toys like this. They don't have squeaky toys. They don't have stuffed animal toys. Nothing, tug toys, nothing like that do they have access to on a regular basis. Those are things that we use only in training. Not to say that they don't have anything that they can play with. They have a lot of things they can play with.
But we keep the interactive toys for interactive.
Yeah, we have more like chew toys that they would have access to all the time. Our dogs love chew bones, so they often have chew bones, or we have a few toys that are made out of rubber that the dogs can chew on and play with. But we save these types of things for the things that are more interactive. Now, I don't own any dogs that aren't really that toy motivated, but it could be that I train really good toy drive because of how I'm prepping my dogs. We're doing a lot of playing and I teach retrieve really early. We let our dogs win a lot when we're playing tug and get them really crazy about it. Ken's super good at teaching dogs to tug. That's his job in our relationship. You teach the dog to tug, I'll teach the dog to do other things.
Yeah, and it does have a lot to do with them winning. Letting them feel like they've got this special resource and they really love it.
Yeah.
We do have a couple of videos on the channel to teach your dog to tug, as well as to teach your dog to love toys, where Hippie Shake didn't naturally just love toys. It's something that we had to work on.
She liked toys, but she liked to hold toys. She didn't necessarily like to tug on toys.
Right. That's her toy poodle, if you don't know.
Yeah. So we had to work on getting her confident enough to tug and play back with us. Now, toys are not the be all end all in agility. Lots of successful dogs can work for food, but toys are definitely easier to reward your dog at a distance with. When we have dogs in our classes that are more treat motivated than toy motivated, we will use things like treat balls. So they're like a little lotus ball, and they open up and you can put food inside and you can close them in. Or we have treat pouches or things like that, where we're sort of combining toys with treats, and they work really, really well for a lot of people. But it's not the end of the world. You can certainly train a dog to be more into toys. It's a little bit of work, but in my opinion, I think it's really worth it. But there's other things you can do. You don't have to be limited to that.
Lots of great questions coming in here, and we will get to them now. Now is the time to ask your agility training question. If you have a question about your obstacle-focused dog, your handler-focused dog, maybe you're trying to figure out your balance, now is the time to ask that. So let's see. Oh, this is a good one. KDC mentions, this looks exactly like what I've been doing with my pup. She tends to look back and forth so fast, I can't isolate her looking at the toy.
So what you need to do is delay your marker. So if you're using a clicker, if you're using a yes, you need to delay your yes for when your dog extends the look. So probably what's happening is you're saying yes too quickly. And what a lot of dogs will do when you say yes is they will look back at us because they think, oh, I'm right. So you need to start to delay your yes. So the dog looks, you're gonna say nothing. If they look back at you, you're gonna say nothing. If they look and the look is a little longer, then you're gonna yes and release them to the toy. And then the next time you're gonna have them look longer so that you extend the period of time that they're looking forward. But it's all about the timing of your marker command. So just maybe be aware of what you're doing with that currently.
Jessica says, what are your views on clicker training for handler focus? And I think you kind of touched on that.
Yeah, whether you're using clicker training or whether you're using the word yes, it doesn't really matter. I do see some people are a little bit more precise with the clicker. I also see a lot of people are terrible with the clicker. So I think it just depends. Using a clicker is not going to make your dog more handler focus. It has everything to do with how and when you're rewarding your dog. So don't go out and buy a clicker thinking it's going to solve your problems. It doesn't really matter. is the short answer to that question.
Yeah, so it's about your timing.
Yeah.
It's not so much about
and how you're rewarding.
Piece of equipment.
Yeah.
Madison says, for a pup that is so handler focused, but with certain obstacles is so obstacle focused, when you try to get them to offer the behavior, they just sit there. What would you suggest?
You needed to consider why the dog is sitting there. Is the dog not motivated to do the job? Are they confused? Are they stressed? Have you done enough shaping exercises where the dog really thinks to offer things? If you've done a lot of shaping exercises, most dogs will do that. Maybe you don't start with the dog in a sit. Start with the dog a bit more free. They could be freestanding. Maybe play with the dog for a second and then stand and see if the dog will offer. I don't let my dogs sit and get stuck without offering anything, but I also do a lot of shaping games with my dogs, so they're just thinking of stuff like left, right, and center, sometimes too frantically. So I would try a couple of those things as well. And you may find that there's some dogs that are more prone to wanting to take some equipment more than others. Like I find contacts and weaves, contacts especially, they get so many treats on contacts that dogs will offer to take them really easily. Think about the amount of treats that you give your dog for taking a jump versus going over an A-frame, for example. Lots of dogs love the A-frame, but look at how heavy the reward is. We don't reward our dog after every jump or after every tunnel. We reward on weaves, reward on contacts. So change up your reward system to make sure that you're evenly distributing things if that is an issue for you. I don't need to reward jumps and tunnels.
No.
Because that's a reward in itself for her.
Yeah. Crenton 100 says, I can get one jump like this, but adding motion, it all goes to pieces, running and barking at me.
So you need to do more offering the jump stuff then. So if you do one jump and it's good and you start to motion towards the second and the dog is just coming in to bark at you, number one, I would correct the dog for that. I would not allow them to do that. It's too self-rewarding. I would take the dog by the collar and I would make them sit, tell them to knock that off, and then I would make them do offering the jump. So I would stand near the jump and I would just wait for the dog to go take it, and then I would reward at a distance from there. But of course, you can't integrate that into your sequence if you've never trained your dog the offering of the jump game. They must know that. We can't just stand there and say, figure something out. If the dog doesn't know how to do that, it just creates stress and confusion. And some dogs will respond to stress and confusion by avoiding or sniffing or leaving you, while other dogs will bark at you more because they're frustrated. So make sure you're doing your groundwork with the foundation exercises, and then you can build in the offering of the jump to that particular exercise really easily.
Good. Diane Patterson, your go-ons over 3 or more jump runs are amazing. I see how to teach the obstacle focus for one obstacle. What advice can you give for teaching the longer runs of jumps?
Cool, I like that question. This is something I work a lot on with my dogs. I do a lot of pre-placing the toy at the end of runs. So when Bee was first learning, I would set up a row of jumps and I would pre-place her toy at the end of it, and then I would run her over the jumps to the reward. And then I would back chain other things. So I might then keep those 3 jumps in place, and then I might have her do like a more technical thing, and then I would send her forward on those jumps to go and get a reward. Then I would transfer from pre-placing a reward to throwing the reward so that it wasn't out being, so when it's pre-placed, it's blatantly a lure. And a lot of dogs will do perfect because the toy's out there and they just run to their toy. But what a lot of people make the mistake of doing is they do that and then they run a course and they don't put a toy out and they wonder why their dog can't do it. So you have to have a smooth progression between having a pre-placed toy, which is a lure, to turning it into a reward. So I would then progress to having somebody drop the toy, like when the dog is sort of committed on like the second to last jump, for example, or the third last jump. And then I would practice throwing the toy myself. I would just mix it up so that the dog's getting comfortable with it. But we do quite a bit of that. The other thing that I do to teach my go-go-go's is if I play Frisbee or Chuck It, which I don't play a lot of Chuck It anymore. But when I used to play a lot of Chuck It, I would send the dog and say, go, 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 go. And then was that exciting? And then I would throw the reward over their head so that it would launch ahead of them. So the dog would be rehearsing running ahead of me for the reward, and that was really, really easy way to do it.
And that was actually something great that we rewarded Hippie Shake with.
Yeah, Frisbee.
Oh, so it was such a
Yeah.
good tool for her because
Yeah.
she was so handler focused.
Yeah.
To be able to reward her away as she's driving away was really helpful
I also
for
did,
her.
like, she loves to chase the other dogs, so I would also hold on to her, like, let her stare at the other dogs. Then I would say, ready, set, go, 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 go. And I would let her go, and then she would take off into the field. So she was just rehearsing
Like a-
running away from me on the go, go, go command.
She was a holy terror. Is what
She was a holy terror.
Lily asks, do you find some sessions requiring going back and forth in handler or obstacle focused exercises? Using a manners minder for weaves sometimes backfired for me in a session and worked fine for others. So I guess, like, you know, how much do you train of obstacle focus? How much do you train of handler focus? It sounds like.
Yeah, that's a good
asking.
question. I think that you also need to work on being able to make sure that the dog really understands to not go towards the reward unless you tell them. And I find this helps that problem because dogs are going to do what they are rewarded for. So if you do a bunch of weaves to a manners minder and then say you go to do a sequence and you don't have the manners minder there anymore, like, it's not shocking that a dog would get to the end of the weave poles and go, hey, where's my thing that I just got rewarded from, 4 times. So one of the things that I do with my dogs is if I intend to reward my dog with a pre-placed toy, I always say, get it. Always. So my dog's not allowed just to pick a toy up off the ground just on her own. So that way, if I want to pre-place the toy somewhere in the course, and say it's on a jump that I take twice, the toy could be on the ground. I could take the jump the first time, and then I could circle back and take it a second time and then tell her get it and let her get the toy on that. But I'm not sure if you were watching earlier, but the exercise I showed you where I put the toy on the ground and then I had B wrap around my legs and then I centered to it, we call that, like, following the handler. And those types of exercises is what allows me to do, like, put the toy out on the course and not center to it. And again, the idea behind this is transferring the dog from obstacle focus to handler focus, or maybe in that moment, reward focus, so that I can switch her back and forth between that. And if I'm having trouble with a dog that's too distracted by the reward being out there, then I sometimes just work that exercise with just a couple obstacles, and I try to do it outside of any course or sequencing training that I happen to be doing at the time.
Yeah, that reminds me when we're talking about going back in the video. Remember, our live streams only are up for 24 hours. So if you want to have it for longer, you may have to share the video with yourself. But you can check it out from now until 10:45
Yeah,
maybe tomorrow night.
the link is actually posted in my Instagram channel in the bio.
Yeah, and
I'll leave it there for a bit. So if you do need to go find it somewhere, you'll need to go to my Instagram channel, which is McCann Dogs Agility. And the link is in the bio to this video.
Perfect. And you know what? I might even create a button. I'll create a Linktree button for Kayl so that you can get through even more easily. Melinda Miller asks, let me just find this Melinda. She says, I think my dog is more obstacle focused. My biggest struggle is the distractions. After the sequence, she takes extra tunnels or runs to an instructor. I've been feeding from my hand, correct approach. Now, this is something that's not just limited to this one specific scenario. It's not just about running to the instructor. And this is something that we really, work hard to work on with dogs in our classes.
Yeah. You want to make sure that your dog is not, try to prevent the dog from going and taking additional obstacles. So if it means that you've just finished your sequence and then the instructor needs to give you some feedback, for example, just call your dog in and give them a job to do. You might even have them hand tap. You might even, just take a knee and grab their collar for a second so that you have more control over the dog, so that they're not self-rewarding by taking additional obstacles or running and interacting with your instructor. You don't want the dog seeking their enjoyment and their reward from somebody that is not you. So if you finish the sequence and your dog says, I don't really care about you, I'd rather go play with the instructor, that's a big diss right there. So you need to work on a stronger recall. You need to maybe change up the reward that you're doing or the interaction that you're doing, so that the moment your dog breaks engagement from you and they just start to run away towards an obstacle or another person, you need the ability to call them back. Yeah. And that is not anything to do with agility. That has to do with obedience training. So you want to keep working on that in order to enhance that. But sometimes I find that my students struggle with this sometimes because my response to them doing well is very over the top sometimes. Woohoo, yes, that was awesome. And I have a lot of animation and emotion in my voice, and the dogs are really attracted to that. I'm also pretty squeaky when I'm really excited, and the dogs get really, really enthralled with that. So you need to make sure that when you're rewarding your dog, make sure you're fun. Make sure you're a lot of fun so that the dog says, whoo, I'm missing out on a party if I don't come to you. So hopefully a couple of those things will be helpful for you.
Yeah, really doubling down on your dog's listening skills, making sure you have a solid leave it. I know you talked about in a comment about working through some distractions, and the leave it's going to be helpful for that. But really building that desire for your dog to be listening to you, it comes a lot from just simple obedience skills.
Yeah.
Just working through distracting environments before you get into the super stimulating environment of the agility ring, whether it's training ring or whatever. Go ahead. I know you mentioned something.
Just it's on topic with what you're saying. When we have students that come to us with this problem, we actually recommend that rather than coming to the arena and here and practicing agility skills, we suggest that they come and practice some recalls and some leave-its and some response to name and some distraction works in around the equipment, because a lot of people will practice in the backyard or they'll practice when they're on a hike, but then when they go to the agility arena, the dog only ever does agility and they don't really learn that the same rules apply in agility than as they do everywhere else. So it's not a bad idea. When Bee was a puppy, before she was old enough to do any agility, say she was like 5, 6, 7 months old, I would bring her in here when there was people training or there was class going on, and I would literally sit in a chair at the back of the arena here, and I would have her just lay at my feet or lay in a little dog bed, and I would just reward her for lying calmly with me. Then I would practice standing in a corner and having her sit beside me on a loose leash, and I would let her watch the agility, and then I would work a little bit of look at me attention, and then I would do a little bit of tugging, and then I would do with some response to name, and then I would do some walking on a loose leash back and forth, all while there was agility going on. Whenever I would go to an agility competition, and obviously she wasn't competing because she was a baby, in between my runs, I would get my puppy out and I would be ringside, working my control, working my focus. So she learned from day one that agility is a lot of fun, but agility is about paying attention to me. And even if you have an older dog that maybe you didn't do this with initially, you always can go back and work these things, even with an older dog. It's always harder to change things when a dog is cemented one way, but it's absolutely possible. You just have to do a little bit more work, and you need to be prepared to sacrifice some things. So, if your dog isn't as focused as you need them to be, think about how much opportunity are you giving them to ignore you and do their own thing. So, you might have to stop competing. You might have to stop doing classes for a bit until you get better control, because dogs do what they're rewarded for. And if you're putting them into a situation where they're off leash around equipment and they are continually taking equipment or running over to greet people or visit people when they're not allowed to, and there's never any repercussions for that, or there's no way to rearrange your reward so that the reward's for something different, you're never going to fix your problem.
Yeah.
So you need to make sure you have the control first, and then the agility comes second.
Yeah, and we talked a little bit earlier in one of our train station live streams about going a little bit slower to get there faster, and this is a great example of that. Really
it's called train smarter.
Yeah, for sure. If you have a 100% reliable recall and you have a solid leave it, it's really going to help you speed up your agility training, and you and your dog will be having a lot more fun. I noticed Dan the Man, our moderator, is dropping some links in the chat for everybody. If you have questions, our moderator Dan is, I see he's added a few links there. He also sent me an adorable picture of Lucy watching the television screen that they're streaming in on. It was really, really cute. Shandy Blake mentions, if I improve obstacle focus with my younger dog, will this help with commitment? She sometimes will pull off and follow me instead.
Yes.
Yeah, the short answer is yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And then what you can do, Shandy, is once you start to work some obstacle focus, you can also add in some opposing motion work. What that means is that you cue your dog to take an obstacle, and before they take it, you purposely run in the opposite direction and teach your dog to still go to the obstacle. You can do that on jumps, you can do that on weaves, you can do that on tunnels, you can do that on everything.
Do you want to show that off? That's a pretty visual thing.
Yeah, I could show that.
Yeah. That'd be a good one to show off.
You want to play more JoJo's?
I think she would.
Okay,
here we go. Back to the after hours agility station. It doesn't have the same ring, but I'll take it. We'll get these chairs out of the way, and I'll turn into a cameraman. You might need to go to that jump if you're going, just because it's easier.
I need to go down to that tunnel.
Okay.
Okay, ready? What can I do here? Okay, I have an idea. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the tunnel because it's a pretty easy one. I'm going to send her over this jump. I'm going to send her to the tunnel. And as she's going this way through the tunnel, I am going to run that way, and I'm gonna call her so she comes out, but I'm gonna start running that way before she even goes into the tunnel. She may or not pull off, I don't know what she's gonna do. Ready? Set, ready? Yes, ready? Go, tunnel, 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 yes! Good girl, woo! Oh, good. Did I run way out of the camera?
Yes.
Sorry.
That's why, can you not just do it on that jump? Can you just send and move away?
Yeah, I can do that this time. It's not nearly as fun though.
No, that's true.
Okay, so I'm gonna just get more speed. I'll send her through the jump. So I'm gonna tell her to go hop. My command, you might hear me say dig, 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 means she's supposed to collect and wrap. But I'm gonna start to run away before she even takes the obstacle. Are you ready? Set, go. Tunnel, speed. Yes. Woo. Good girl.
That was a pretty good example.
So when I see, oh, happy days. When I see that she's committed to the jump, so it was when I saw her looking at the jump, then I could run away. And to be perfectly honest, I don't even look for her to look at the jump anymore. I just leave as early as I can, and I trust that she's gonna take the jump because I've practiced this so much. But I'm gonna try and like really push the limits here. And so this goes back to, I can't remember who asked this question, but if the dog pulls off and starts to turn and bark, she's not gonna turn and bark at me, but she may pull off. I'll show you how I would fix it with an offering the jump exercise. So I'm gonna make it super hard, hopefully she screws up. Ready? Okay, go, tunnel. Ready? Go. Oh my God,
wow.
You're brilliant. Good girl.
Now, if she had have screwed up.
Wow, that was really good. Good girl. Yeah, so if I went to go send her over the jump and she pulled away, I just do this. Okay. Okay. Yes, good girl. She's waiting for permission now. Good. So I could give her an additional verbal. So again, if I go to send and she doesn't go, yes, good girl. I would just give her the verbal, but I make her fix that jump before I go on, because a lot of people, the dog will pull off and they'll go, oh, and then they'll start again at jump 1. If this is the problem jump, you need to fix that jump before going back, and then you can go from there. Again, if I'm working on commitment as well, you can see sometimes I'm throwing the reward back to her so that the reward is for taking the jump. If my dog couldn't really do this, I'm obviously showing off a little bit here. My dog can do this. So if I was trying to help her be successful here, I might do something like this and put her toy down. I talked about this earlier. So there's where her toy is. She shouldn't go get it until I tell her that she can. Ready, set, go. Tunnel. Get it. Yes, good girl. So by placing the toy out there, I can lure her and get her to go a little bit better. Good, out, good. So now I'm gonna put the toy here. Set, go, tunnel. Yes, get it, yay, good girl. So I want her to pass the toy and not go to the toy until I give her permission. Good girl, good girly.
Great.
Good.
Okay, I'll just set this camera up again.
My shoes are very colorful in this.
Yes, they look very contrasty.
They're very purple and pink. Good girl, sweetheart.
Awesome. So
you're the
if
smartest
there
little
are
freckle
some
face.
more questions. Yeah. Okay. I think that was a pretty impressive training session, and I hope you guys feel like you took some value, especially if you were trying to figure out how to make your dog more obstacle focused or more handler focused, or maybe just gave you a little bit of clarity. What
maybe some ideas on some drills to train, because sometimes it can be hard to come up with things to train on your own.
Definitely.
Especially if you don't have a lot of space, and I don't know where you live, but it's cold and gross here, and sometimes you just want to do little things instead of like set up these huge honking courses.
Yeah, for sure.
I love training little drills. This is actually most of the training that I do. I probably run sequences and courses like, well, I have the ability to run it once a week because we have classes, but most of my training sessions, I do skill building like this, and I think that's one of the reasons why she's only 2, and she's able to run quite technical courses, but I don't hardly do that with her because we just work all this little skill stuff. So when I go to put things together, I feel like we're a team and that I can trust her because I've broken down the skills and made it really easy for her to be successful. And then I can run her like an advanced dog because she knows her stuff.
For sure.
She's also adorable.
She is quite adorable. I see a couple questions coming in. I see one from Toxic Demonics about obedience training for a pup that's 6 months old. Some of the foundation stuff, your stays, your recall, your response to name, and walking on a loose leash. I want you to focus on those things. We do have videos on the channel that will cover that stuff.
Yeah, this particular live stream is specifically agility focused. However, we are professional dog trainers, and most often on Thursday nights when we do this, we talk about obedience training. So if you're just with us for the first time and you're like, wondering about those types of things, we do an agility live stream once a month, but then all the other times we're talking about basic obedience skills. Even if you are an agility person, you know, it wouldn't hurt to hear some of that other stuff, because it can be integrated into agility more than you know.
Totally, yeah. It's I mean,
Thursdays at 7:30.
Faster training sessions, you know, more success, just and
more clarity for your dog.
For sure, yeah. So don't overlook your obedience training. We do have a online course that you can try out. I forget who asked that. Toxic Demonics. We do, and I think it's linked in the description below. You can try out the first lesson for free, but you'll train with us essentially online for your obedience skills. But I want to thank all of our agility viewers who are here tonight, who
Thanks for
had
staying
some
up late
fun.
with us.
Yeah, this is a great after hours agility session. Or I've forgotten what it is already, Shandy. I'm going to have to go back in the
after hours agility.
After hours agility, yeah. I think, you know, I'm going to get like a glowing neon sign.
AHA, aha.
Yeah. Ah. Uh-huh. I'm gonna have to get like a glowing sign or something cool, because I love that name. And Lilia says, "Thank you. This has been very helpful.
We need a lamp.
And giving me good ideas to try." Well, thank you guys for joining us. Now, I would love it if you guys would drop a thumbs up for the hardest working moderator on YouTube. Dan and Ellen Luton are on incredible moderators for us. He's also sent me a couple of pictures of Lucy. So hi, Lucy, who's at home. Lucy's like standing on two legs watching the live stream on television. But I want to thank you for joining us. You know, we do these live streams for you guys, so we really appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation and for you to jump in on the chat and let us know how we can help you. On that note, if this is your first time on the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We publish new videos every single week to help you to have a well-behaved four-legged family member. And on that note, I'm Ken.
I'm Kayl, and this is Beeline.
And I want to thank you guys for joining. Happy training.